Good morning again. Welcome to another ELIT webinar. Again, I do have some activities. So the first screen that you see is going to be for you to have your mobile device out. And you can open a mobile browser, go to Slido, and enter the code M077 and get ready for the questions as they come up during the presentation. We're here today to talk about accessibility. Are your course materials accessible? My name is Paige Durham. I'm the instructional designer for Germanna Community College. And today we have about 13 people from ELIT that will be in the chat, and they will be taking care of all of your questions. So please feel free to load up the chat with lots of questions so you can keep them busy. All right, so the agenda for this morning. The why and what of accessibility. And then we're going to talk about making documents accessible. Then we'll talk about making images accessible, making videos accessible, making course resources accessible, making course content inclusive, and some resources. And there are tons and tons and tons and tons of resources. This is being recorded, as you heard, and we will have this recording with the slide deck up and available to you on our website, and probably by Monday. All right, let's begin. The why, the what and why. So here's your first question for the presentation. So what is the difference between making your course accessible and an accommodation? So go ahead and make your choice. And I will show you the results in just a second. All right, I'm going to show you the results. Dun, dun, dun. So here we go. So the correct answers were 2 and 3. So we're going to go through and talk about all of those things right now. So this next slide is a graphic that will give you some idea that you can see with students with disabilities. So for example, this was from 2015, 2016. You can see that there are a large number of students at community colleges who self-identified themselves as having either ADD or ADHD, and almost 20% suffered from depression. So when you're thinking about accommodations and accessibility, you're thinking about many, many different things. So make sure that when you're thinking about those things, you don't consider just one group. You have to make you have to have a big picture of what is going on. The what and why. So the reason that we're asking and doing this is because being in an online environment for a student can be very challenging if they're struggling with just getting to the content. So talking about accessibility today is going to allow students who need that extra support from design to be included, so that they are able to be as successful as students who may not need that accessibility. But we all use things that were originally done for those who needed accommodations. Handicap ramps would be a great example, handicap bathrooms. I mean, we all use those kinds of things. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about guidelines that were established by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or you're going to hear that called WCAG. which is a very strange word, but that's it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what are assistive technologies. So screen readers and students who have to use screen readers, and what does that mean when we're putting things in Canvas. And so you can think about all those things when you are doing your design. And when you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're doing it with things like Quality Matters, universal design. And why are you doing it again? Well, because first of all, it is the law. So the American Disabilities Act has some very specific things that tell us what we should be doing for all of our students. And beside the fact, it does create a culture of diversity and inclusion, because it makes the course welcoming for everyone from the very beginning. Okay, so making documents accessible. So in Canvas, we're talking about pages and quizzes and assignments. However, there are some resources in here that are also going to help you design PowerPoints and Word documents that, if you're putting them inside of Canvas, will also make them accessible. So most online courses, of course, rely heavily on text. So there are some things that we can do to make sure that that text is accessible to all students so that they can be fully engaged. So when you're thinking about writing, especially your instructions, you want to make sure that they don't rely on shape, size, sound, or location. You also want to make sure that each page has a very descriptive and informative title. For example, page 2, that's not so descriptive or informative. You also want to think about each link is unique and descriptive. So click here. Well, that doesn't mean anything to someone who is not reading that themselves, but they're having a screen reader. They don't know where here is. Headings are unique, informative, and properly ordered, thinking about a table. So when you're building out a table, what do those headings, what do the columns mean? What do the rows mean? And then the other thing you want to think about is online tools that make math accessible. All right, so we have the rich content editor in Canvas that can help us do all of those things. So for example, when we're inserting a link, notice that the box here has a text here and then a link. So you would never put in the text box, click here, because that would be not very helpful at all, or the text of the word link and then a great big long hyperlink. And also, you don't want to type out, you don't want to leave the whole hyperlink available, because a student who would be looking at that would have to hear https:// and on their screen reader. And we do actually I have an example of that in just a minute. So the other thing at the bottom here in this corner, you see headings that provide structure to your document. And then also in the rich content editor, you have a math equation that will help for making math equations accessible. So what makes a table accessible? Headers for rows and columns, captions, and a table should not be used for formatting or control of a page. So you can think of this little image that you see. Obviously, this is pretty easy to decide how to put those headers in and how to put those captions in. So now let's go look at Canvas and take a look exactly what those tools look like. 2 seconds. I've got too many screens open and my computer is fussing at me. All right, so here we are, ta-da, in Canvas. So I'm going to click on the plus, And I'm just going to open a page because that's the easiest way to start. Except I can't spell. All right, so I'm going to open the page to edit. Now, the image that you saw previously was obviously with the old rich content editor, and here is the new rich content editor. So here we go. Let's make a little table here. So we'll go over to the table, and I'm going to click on a table. I'll make 3 by 3, and there it is. And when you do that, you do have options under here to add rows or other items, columns. So I'm just going to do exactly what the other one was. Oops. All right, there we go. So now we have a table. So this table is obviously not formatted the way that we need it to be formatted. So I'm going to go back over here to the table tool, and now I'm going to click on cell properties, and now I have lots of things to pick from. Notice that I have an advanced tab. I can put in the borders if I needed to. Or when I go back up here, I can pick on the table properties, and now I can click on the show captions. This also allows, again, there is an advanced option here for borders. So I'm going to click save, and now you can see right above the table there is a space that will allow me to put in those captions. Now, if I highlight the top row, I can click on the cell properties, and now I'm going to notice that I have the option to pick header cell. So when I do that, now it has changed. You could also change the alignment as well. But making these things, doing these this is how you make a table accessible inside of Canvas. So now I want to go over here and I want to talk about, so my table is obviously at the top of my page. So maybe we want to move that down a little bit. And then we're going to put up here, type this one in, that would be great. And now I'm going to choose to make this not paragraph, but a heading. And now this is starting to give structure to my document. Now I know that's not much structure because it's the first thing, but instead of using color or bold or font size or any of those things, you're using the option here to make the structure of the document. All right. So here is your first activity. So I would like for you to go to a Canvas course, create a new page, and then you can put a title, some paragraph text, a second section, maybe a little paragraph text. Use the rich content editor to give headings, and so your page has structure, and then you can add a table and test out some of those things that you saw in the little animated graphic, as well as what I did for you. So I'm going to give 3 minutes for everybody to try this out. Ready, set, go. Okay. Hopefully you got to Canvas and were able to at least look for some of those things that I talked about. Now let's move on. Making images accessible. So what does that mean? Image is accessible. So grab that cellular device or mobile device that you're using, and please take a minute and mark the statement that fits you best. So alt text or alternative text, has many different names. The one very nice thing about Canvas is it does help you out in getting those alt text descriptions put in. However, in Blackboard, oh, I said the word, that you could actually put in images that in alt text was not necessary, which was definitely a hindrance for any student who needed to know what that image was. So now we're going to discuss how to make those images accessible. So images are used to convey information, demonstrate relationships, but you have to keep in mind that if you either have low vision or you can't see the image at all, the information that you put in the alt text is what the student is going to need. My mouse and I are not getting along today. So here are some things to think about. Color. You need to make sure that when you convey information, you are not using color to differentiate something that is important versus something that is not important. Specifically, let's think about red text. If you're using red text to highlight or put emphasis on something, someone who is colorblind is not going to see that red. So to them, it's not going to mean that it is important. So make sure that you're using also something that is high contrast. So the polar opposites are what you want to think of. So the best examples that I could think of were black on white or white on black. And then if you look underneath, you can see if you were red-green colorblind, you can see what those colors would look like to you. And especially if you get down toward the second half of that chart, you can see that that whole bottom half, there's not any distinguishing difference between the right column and the left column. So alt text. So you never want to leave the file name as alt text on an image. And you need to think about the description of the image. You don't need to say things like it's a picture of, just describe the picture. You also need to focus on what information that picture is conveying to the student. And you can also have very long descriptions. So if you happen to have an image that is very complex, then you can create a page in Canvas, put that entire description on it, and then link it to that image. So these questions that are posted here are kind of questions that you can ask yourself. So do you need the image, of course, would be my first question. If it is only for decoration, then make sure you put that when you are clicking on the alt text. So again, this slide deck will be available to you. So you want to think about, the main question is, do you need the image? And if you do, what is it that the image is going to convey to the student? What is that knowledge that they are supposed to get from the image? So alt text in Canvas. So again, we're back to the rich content editor, and we're going to look at the image icon. And when we click on it, it's going to give us a box that'll be much larger than this one. That'll give you three choices. You can upload an image. You can choose to put in an image from Unsplash, or you can link to a URL. So let's pop over to Canvas. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the page that I already started, and I'll click on Edit, and I'll wait. All right, so let's say I want to put an image right under the lesson on parts of speech, except I typed that wrong. So I'm going to find the image tool, click on that, and then here are my three choices. So there could be images inside of the course already. There could be images I have somewhere else, or I'm going to actually choose upload image. So from here, if I had an image, I could drag and drop, or if I didn't, I can click on it, find an image, and click open. And obviously, we have Bambi. So I'm going to click submit. Now, if you are wondering why that ended up in the middle of my text, that was because that's where my cursor was. So if I want to move that, I can click on the image and drag it so that it is underneath. But now if you see, if I click back on the image, you see a little options tab up here at the top. So if I click on that, this is where the option for putting in all of the alt text can go. And you see you have a pretty good size box that you can make bigger if you need to. You can also choose to check the box because it is a decorative image. So for this, I would do that. So then, and then I would click done. Now let's say there was another image. I wanted to go to back here and click on upload. But this time I'm going to actually pick Unsplash. And I'm going to put in here and see what happens. Well, it's very interesting. I'm just going to pick this first picture and I'll click submit. Now, obviously that's a huge picture that just showed up, so I'll make it a little bit smaller. And again, I have the option. Now, when I click on the option, because that came from Unsplash, it came over with its own alt text, which you can edit for the sake of why you're putting the image in. I just wanted you to make sure that you knew that it came over with Unsplash. So be as descriptive as you possibly can without using the words like a picture of blah, 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 blah. So keep those in mind when you are putting in those alt text descriptions. And then I would click done. Here's a little bit more information about alt text. You can also use text that is outside of the image to describe the image. And then the second part of that is if you have a very lengthy description or it has a lot of data in it, you can always create a Canvas page and link to that from the image. So activity 2, in your Canvas course on that page that you just created, go ahead and add an image however you choose and either add alt text or edit the alt text if you're choosing to use an image from Unsplash. Okay, 3 minutes, ready, set, go. All right. Hopefully you were able to get an image in there and play around a little bit with the alt text. It does get at least your juices flowing this morning about thinking about images and how they are used inside of your course. Okay, so there are tons of resources, and I put this slide in here, and I'm not going to click on all of them, to help you make images accessible. Now let's talk about videos. We all like videos. And so I do have a question for you. Have you ever used the captions on a video? So grab that cellular device and let's see what happens. So, no, I've not ever used them. Yes, I've used them when I want to see a video without bothering anybody else. That's me. And so the one thing I will say about captions is, believe it or not, people use them who don't need them. And I am one of those. Countless times, Facebook videos will magically appear and I will want to know what they're about. And if they have captions, I can guarantee you I will read them 9 times out of 10 without ever turning the sound on. So some students have to have them. Some students are going to use them if they're there. So thinking about captions can be very daunting if you're thinking about, oh, I have to type all those words out that I just said. Yeah, that is that is a bit of a challenge. However, technology is great, and if you have been paying attention to the presentation, you know that at the top of the Google slides, you can see captioning going on. Now, because we are recording this with Zoom, those captions will be captured. Okay, that was terrible for me to use that word in a sentence twice. But anyway, so if you're using and recording with Google, you could caption it using the Google Slides AI. However, there are other ways to do that. So, considerations. For audio as well as video. So if you have a podcast that you are using, your podcast should have a transcript. So if you're creating a podcast, then I would suggest begin with a transcript. I also in the past have used a podcast and played it on my computer, and then I let my phone actually transpose it into text, and then I went back and edited. But that's a ton of steps. So keep that in mind. You can also post that transcript as a PDF, and you could link it to a separate page if you didn't want to have the transcript with the audio. But however you use the transcript with the audio, you want to make sure that students know where it is if they need it. If you have videos in your course, all videos should have captions or at least a very descriptive transcript. It doesn't have to be word for word, but it has to be pretty close. All of your lectures also should be fully captioned. And the nice thing is Studio and Canvas will do that for you. Now let's talk about things outside of what we are creating ourselves. So we're on the internet and we find a video. We like it. It gives a lot of great information. Look and see if it's captioned already. If there is no caption and it is open source, can you download it? If you can download it, then you can put it in Studio and have it captioned. Or could you request that a transcript be made? You may have a department, your disabilities department at your institution may have that captioning capability. However, if the video is copyrighted, you need to make sure that you have that permission. So this is my big orange slide, which could have been red, but it really doesn't matter. It's just kind of an attention getter. YouTube auto-generated captions are not an acceptable form of captioning. And the reason for that is they aren't very good. And if you have terms that are specific and to your discipline, 9.5% out of 10, YouTube will not get them correct. And also it just is not as intuitive as and accurate as Studio. So, and again, Studio is in Canvas, and to edit them is a lot less work. So now let's go over to Canvas before we do that activity and talk about captioning. So I need to save this page because I didn't do that before. So I'm going to go right into Studio. There we go. And you can see, I got a lot of videos. So I'm going to click on one of the videos that I know. Let's try this one. All right, so when I click on that video, notice that I have 4 tabs under the video: details, comments, insights. Obviously, what I need is captions. When I click on captions, my first question is, what language is spoken in the video? This is not a translating service, so this is the language that is spoken. So I'm going to click English, and then I'll click request. It'll take a few seconds in order, or maybe minutes, and if it's really busy, it might take a while. But eventually, you will receive a message that your video has been captioned, and then you can go back in and edit the captions. So I'm going to leave this page because it's going to take some time. And I will go back to another video, and I'm going to click on this one. And this one has already been captioned. And if I go to the 3 dots, I can now, I have some options. I could actually download the transcript, replace it, or I can edit. If I click on edit, when you go through this, it will actually, you can play and you can see, you can't hear it, but so as you're moving through, you can fix any commas or capitals or periods. You can pause the video. You can go back. It's so much easier to do than in YouTube. And when you're all finished, obviously that was a fairly short video, you just go back and your captions have been saved. So now time for an activity. So go to your Canvas Studio, locate one of your videos that is not from YouTube, open the video. If it has been captioned, check the captions so you can edit them, or request captions. Again, you may, if it's a long video, it will take a while for the captioning to actually finish. So 3 minutes, and ready, set, go. All right, let's go on. What else? So think about a couple other things when you're creating videos. Captioning a video that does not contain academically important information is optional. However, it is the best practice to always have your videos captioned. You can ask yourself some certain questions that will help you decide about that captioning and its necessity, especially if it's immediate necessity. And then the other thing is you need to keep in mind that if you're doing a Zoom session, you need a live captioner if that is something that is an accommodation for one of your students, or you can use the Google AI on a slide. But notice that, and when I go off of the screen that has this, the captions, of course, go away. So keep that in mind. So now let's talk about making your course resources accessible. So true or false, hyperlinks need to be underlined and can be left as the entire URL for accessibility. True or false? Ready, go. Answer. So let's see, true or false? I already gave you this answer, so I'm trying to see now if you were paying attention or if you're like me and your coffee hadn't quite kicked in yet. True. False. The answer is false. Hyperlinks need to they need to be underlined, yes, but it should not be an entire URL. You should use descriptive text to describe what the link is going to. All right, so back over here. So course resources, so learning technology tools. So make sure that you have an accessibility statement for any tools that you're using inside your course. Your college may provide for you a privacy and accessibility statement page that has links to publisher accessibility, Canvas's accessibility, all of those things may be provided for you. However, if they are not, make sure that you go out and be the detective and find those accessibility statements. The other thing you want to think about is if you're using some kind of technology, if you didn't have a mouse and you only had your keyboard, could you still use it? So that's something else to keep in mind. And that's something that maybe a lot of people are not, when they're thinking about technology, don't think about. Also, you want to look for color contrast. I received a document earlier this week that was red background with a dark gray text. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't read 3 words that were on it. So obviously, wherever that came from, they were not aware of the need for color contrast. So also you want to make sure that if there is audio, video, images, is the alt text provided, are the captions provided, are transcripts provided. Now, thinking about other things that could be in your course, such as PDFs and ebooks. So make sure if you're using a PDF that it is searchable. So you don't want to use a PDF that is an image because you can't search in the PDF if it is an image. Also, if it's not a very high quality one, you want to make sure that you find or you clean it up using Adobe. And thinking about ebooks, make sure that they are HTML formatted so that they're really easy to use with a screen reader. And I know a lot of publishers now actually provide the option for the text to be read for students as part of the package. And so students actually can just click on the button and it will actually read the text to them even without a screen reader. Hyperlinks. So keep links concise. Don't use the word link or click here. Avoid using URLs as link text. Don't capitalize. Also, make sure you tell the user when a new window is going to open. Make sure you underline the links. Now, here is another little kind of thing you need to think about. If you are underlining, If you're underlining text in a document for something other than a link, you need to reconsider why you're doing that. Because underlining means to most people, and it should, that, oh, I see I have a typo, that it is a link. So I want to play a quick snippet. I'm not going to play this whole video of this, what it sounds like for a screen reader.
Hi, my name is Jason Holt. I'm with the Universal Access Department. Today we will be demonstrating a screen reader. With a screen reader, I as a blind person can navigate to a web page, and I don't use a mouse because I can't see where the mouse is pointing, but I can use a keyboard, and JAWS, the screen reader, will tell me where I am on the page and allow me to read various parts of the page. Okay, let's take a few minutes to actually see how JAWS works. Here we are at my main screen on my computer, and I want to browse the internet, so I will open up a browser. I'll press the Windows key.
Menu, search box, edit, type text in this edit field, or press up or down arrow.
And JAWS announced that I have a menu. Then I want to find my browser. My favorite browser is Firefox.
JAWS 17.0, one of Internet Explorer submenu, Word 2013 submenu, Firefox submenu 406.
Oh, Firefox, that's the one I want, so I'll press enter.
Enter, leaving menus, Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, start page dash Mozilla Firefox, search clear.
That opens the browser. Now I'll press Alt-D to put my cursor in the navigation bar.
Alt-D, navigation toolbar, search.
Now let's go to our homepage, the community college's homepage. So I'll type SLCC
period EDU.
EDU. You notice that JAWS repeats to me each character as I type it. That way if I make a mistake, I can hear it and I can backspace.
Slash U HTTP://
and I can retype it again.
U search or enter address edit combo SLCC.
Now,
so the video is describing to you, and if you haven't heard a screen reader before, that's a very /opening experience. So you can imagine that if you were using an entire URL and you had https://present.slido/PR. If you can just imagine that, having a student have to hear that while they were expected to participate and understand the content, how frustrating that could be. Okay, so a few more Canvas tools that can help you. So you have the accessibility checker in Canvas. So what is that? And what does it check? So the information here, I'm not going to go over. It is there for you to peruse later. It goes over things like tables, headings, it talks images, and it also will check links and text. So I'm going to go back to the page that I created a few minutes ago. And I'm going to open the page. And I'm going to click on the little guy right here underneath. And if you hover over it, it will tell you that it is the accessibility checker. So if I click on that, it tells me that I have 1 out of 4 issues that it found. So it says I should describe the image. So again, remember, if you, I said it was a decorative image originally, but it still wants me to decide. Also, notice here, it tells me that it's asking specifically about the header. Is this a header for a row or a column? So you could make that decision, and it's going to ask me the next one and the next one. And then when it's all right, it tells you, woo, balloons. So there you have a way inside of Canvas to check to make sure that you've done the necessary things to create a page that would be accessible to students. The next tool that I'm going to talk about is one called the Link Validator. So I'm going to go down here to Settings. Oops. Now I'll go to Settings. My computer's going to be very... And over here on the right, you can see there is a Validate Links in Content. I'm going to click on that. And I've already run this before, so this is what it's bringing up. The link validator is going to find any links that are broken to outside sources. So for example, if you are linked to something outside and that source is no longer there, it's going to come back and it will tell you that. It will also tell you if you have something that is linked to a page that's been deleted, either in your Canvas course or to a page that was linked elsewhere. You can run the link validator multiple times in order to clean up whatever it is that has been located. So for example, if I wanted to see what is this specific 3-week-long paper and homepage. So if I click on the title, and you can tell that this is an assignment and these are pages because of the icon. So if I click on this, and now I see that this homepage is a link, and I know that that link is broken. So I could either go in and replace the link or delete the link, but it would allow me to fix that pretty quick. So again, you can run the link validator as many times as you like in order to fix any content that is broken. The other thing is there may be some things that are going to show up that actually are not, we'll call them broken. They just link to somewhere else. So it gives you a way to kind of check, especially if you have a lot of external content from the internet or elsewhere before you, at the end of the semester, before you start a new one, you probably want to check and run the link validator. Okay, so we are running short on time, so I'm going to skip this activity, but you do want to go in and run the link validator on one of your courses and investigate any results that you find. So making your course content inclusive. So accessibility levels the playing field for everyone. And simply put, making courses or content accessible is not about addressing deficits in our students. It's just about good teaching and communication. So here are 2 statements that you could add to your syllabus that would let your students know that you are committed to their success, and if they need help, that they can request it from you, and that information is given to them at the very beginning of the course so that they know that you are there to provide those accommodations or help them be successful. This is a great question. So what is the one thing you know you need to change in your course that meets, so that it meets accessibility requirements? You can answer this, you don't have to. This was just kind of a what to make you think. And this can be a very overwhelming topic. So my next slide here is just what next and where do I begin? There's so many areas to cover when you start thinking about making your course accessible, so start small. Think about your course and think about what do you have the most of that you think needs work, and start there. The other thing is don't think about doing anything that is old. Make creating accessible content your new to-do list. So when you make that new lecture video and you need to put it in your course, make sure you think about it as soon as you're done with it. Ask Studio to caption it for you and edit those captions and start that new plan right then with working on the right now. And then as time moves on, you can go back and anything that you're reusing that isn't accessible, go back and make those changes to those. Make your action plan to do a few documents or videos once a month and check things out, and make sure you run that link validator often to make sure that everything is is still available. And finally, I had to put this in there because we're all in this together, and I just felt like that, you know, this is a huge topic that can be very overwhelming if you don't think about it in little small pieces. So yes, this was a lot of information in an hour, but I wanted to make sure that I touched on all of the things that require you to give some thought for that accessibility piece if you haven't before. So to wrap it up, we talked about the what's and whys. We talked about documents, images, videos, course resources, and content. And the last few slides here are actually, please let us know how we did. We love to hear from you. And these are resources that you can go to. I would love to be able to go click on them to show you everything that is available. But you can go to Quality Matters, and it is a free resource, and you can go in and look at the Quality Matters lessons that talk about that. The Canvas accessibility checklist from the University of Washington is awesome. There's actually a course called Accessibility 101 Principles of Inclusive Design that is a Canvas free course, and there's just so much. Here are some standards and links to those standards so that if you want to delve into why they are the way they are. There are laws. Why are we doing this? And here's the reason. It's not because anybody was trying to make us work harder. Lawsuits that have happened because content was not accessible. So if you need to take a look at those. And then the last question, which you can answer at any time, of course, is let us know what kind of webinar you would like for us to offer to you in either next month or in the summer or in the fall. We want to know what we can do to better serve you and provide services for you to help you create content for your students. If you have any questions, hopefully you had them answered in the chat. And I would like to say thank you very much for coming, and have an awesome day.